Some people are born into a warm embrace, surrounded by the soft whispers of love and the safety of a home. But others are born into the silent cold of indifference. Sarah didn't know what a hug felt like until she was old enough to realize she would never get one. She grew up on a remote farm where the land was harsh and the hearts were even harsher. To her father, Sarah was never a daughter. She was merely another pair of hands to work the soil, a silent shadow that moved through the fields from dawn until dusk. Her mother was a ghost in her own home, broken by years of hardship and choosing silence over the pain of speaking. In that house, there were no celebrations, no words of encouragement, and no, "I love you." There was only the sound of the wind rattling the old wooden windows and the heavy weight of being invisible. Sarah learned early on that her value was tied to her labor, and her feelings were a luxury no one cared to afford. She spent her nights staring at the stars through the cracks in her bedroom ceiling, wondering if there was a world out there where people were seen for who they were, not just for what they could do. In that house, words were only used to command, never to comfort. Sarah learned to talk to the wind and the animals in the barn because the wind was the only thing that ever touched her face with gentleness. As the years passed, the silence within the walls of the farmhouse became a physical weight, pressing down on her chest until it was hard to breathe. While other girls in the nearby village dreamed of silk dresses and summer dances, Sarah's reality was stained with the dust of the earth and the grease of the kitchen. She became a master of anticipation, learning to read the tension in her father's shoulders to avoid a lecture or a cold stare. One winter, when the fever took hold of her and she lay shivering in her small, unheated room, no one came to check on her. No one brought a cup of water or a warm blanket. She lay there in the dark, listening to the muffled sounds of her parents eating dinner downstairs, and it was then that she truly understood. She was completely and utterly alone, even in a house full of people. Her soul was starving for a drop of kindness, but the well was dry. The soul has a limit. You can starve a body for weeks, but if you starve a soul of love for 20 years, it either dies or it runs. For Sarah, the breaking point came on a Tuesday, a day as ordinary and gray as any other. A simple mistake, a dropped jar of preserved fruit that shattered on the kitchen floor, triggered a storm of cruelty from her father that she could no longer endure. It wasn't just the words. It was the look of pure resentment in his eyes, as if her very existence was a burden he was tired of carrying. That night, while the world slept, Sarah made a choice. She didn't have much, a few old clothes, a piece of dry bread, and a heart that felt like it was made of glass. She packed a small bundle and stepped out into the misty morning. The fear of the unknown was terrifying, but the fear of staying was worse. As she walked down the long, dusty road, she didn't look back at the house that had never been a home. She chose the uncertainty of the road over the certainty of a slow, emotional death. Fate doesn't use a map. It uses a collision course. Just when Sarah thought the world had forgotten her existence, and her legs could no longer carry the weight of her exhaustion, she crossed paths with someone who saw her before she even spoke. She had collapsed by the side of a road near a small, unfamiliar town, her spirit finally broken by hunger and cold. That was when Samuel found her. He wasn't a hero from a storybook. He was a man with rough hands and eyes that held the wisdom of someone who had known his own share of storms. He didn't ask her for her story or judge her for her tattered clothes. Instead, he did something Sarah found revolutionary. He offered his hand. He took her to his modest cabin at the edge of the woods and placed a bowl of warm stew in front of her. For the first time in her life, someone provided for her without expecting a chore in return. Samuel moved with a quiet grace, respecting her silence, offering her the one thing she had never known, peace. For Sarah, kindness felt like a threat. When you are used to the thorns, you don't know how to hold a rose without waiting for the sting. In the weeks that followed, Samuel's presence became a steady anchor in her chaotic world. He taught her how to tend to the garden, But he also taught her that it was okay to rest when the sun was high. He listened when she finally began to speak, her voice trembling as she shared fragments of the life she left behind. Every time he defended her from a rude comment in the village, or brought her a wildflower just because it reminded him of her strength, Sarah felt a piece of her armor fall away. She had many nights where she cried until she was empty, unable to process why this stranger was being so good to her. But Samuel stayed. He didn't try to fix her, he simply stood by her, showing her through his actions that she was worthy of space, worthy of respect, and for the first time in her life, worthy of being loved. Love is not a reward for being perfect. It is the light that finds us in our darkest hour. Sarah didn't find a savior in Samuel. She found the mirror she needed to see her own value. Today, the girl who was raised without love is a woman who radiates it. She lives in that small cabin, which has become a sanctuary of warmth and laughter. The scars of her past haven't disappeared, but they have faded, replaced by the strength of a foundation built on mutual support and genuine care. She looks at the horizon now, not as an escape route, but as a promise of more beautiful days. Sarah's story is a reminder to anyone listening that your beginning does not have to be your end. Even if you were raised in the cold, you have the power to seek the sun. Fate placed someone different in her path, but it was Sarah's courage to trust again that truly saved her life. She is no longer invisible. She is a lighthouse for those still wandering in the dark.